Hello, everybody.
Yeah, hi, Vikram.
Hi, Murali. Hi, Kirti. Hi, Monica. Hi, Sandeep. Hi, Shravani. Thank you for joining, even though you're traveling.
Hi Vikram. Yes, Vikram. Like she just missed her flight and we are in airport. So I thought of joining through my phone.
That's really bad. Okay, so Vidisha is not joining in.
No, like she has a flight at 12:30 and they rescheduled that another flight. Like they gave another flight for her.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So there is a Zoom app on your iPhone. If you're using an iPhone, I'm not sure if it's on Android.
No, Vikram. Like it's an iPhone. Like I have a Zoom app in my phone. Like I log in through that.
Oh, awesome. So my whole concern was that you have a look at the screen, okay? Uh,
Yeah.
instead of just talking part, but I believe everybody have completed their assignment. That is, do anybody have any difficulty doing their assignment? Other than that, you could not able to find time. Not really. So whoever who hasn't completed their use your panel. Who hasn't completed their assignment? Okay, whoever completed say yes. Who haven't completed say no. Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you, Murali. Thank you, Monica, for completing. Thank you, Kirti. So Shravani hasn't completed. That's okay, Shravani. And where are other folks? I believe Neha. And who else? Guys, the number is going down every day. So, guys,
Yes, Vikram, Uday. I'm calling Uday.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Vikram, Uday isn't there, I guess. I'm calling her.
Okay, thank you, Kirti, for doing that. And Neha, Monica, can you try to call Neha? Guys, I keep telling you again and again and again. Please let me know if you are not joining in, so I don't waste, everybody's time trying to reach people out. Okay, meanwhile, so everybody completed their assignment. That makes me think that you have created a content. Okay, let me clear the answers for you. Thank you, Venkatesh, for joining in. So creating the container was an additional thing. Whoever completed creating a container, use your panel, please. Did anybody create a container and pushed all their product cards into product container? Okay, there you go, Murthy. Thank you. Thank you, Kirti. Thank you, Sandeep. I would definitely try to look at it at the end of the session. I'm a little exhausted today. I may not be as active as I always do. I had a very long session with my a new person. He had a lot of questions about the project. I'm almost tired. I'll try to be as loud as I can. But if any point of time am I really sounding very low, please ask me to be loud. Okay. All right. Thank you, folks, for understanding. That was an uninvited meeting. I was joined on behalf of my manager. He is not around. He asked me to explain about the project. So it was a very late. It wasn't a late thing, but I just opened my company's email, and then I got to know. Okay, I had a thing, and then the first thing I did was to update you guys. Okay, I'm really really sorry about this. It was I did as quick as possible, but it was my mistake. I haven't checked my emails, assuming that I would not have anything important because I'm out of the project. Okay. That is all the story that you guys don't need about, but well, the whole point is I really apologize. Okay, folks. So where were we yesterday? So we were trying to create a component. We were talking about the props yesterday, right, folks? So a prop is nothing but a data sent to a child from the parent. Okay, so there would be one interview question. What is the difference between a state and a prop? And always, guys, when everybody, as I always say, I take a lot of interviews. Every interviewer has a different way of taking putting down the questions. Few people directly jump onto the core concepts. They try to understand, tell you that, okay, You know what? You are a React expert. So let me directly jump into the core APIs, like what is the component life cycles. But a lot of interviewers would try to ask you the basic questions first. So you know what? They would understand with a few questions that you are capable of taking an interview or not. With the 2 or 3 questions, they'll try to wind up the interview if you could not able to answer the basic questions. Okay, the first and the foremost basic question in React is what is the difference between a state and a props? Can anybody tell me what is the difference? So we have looked into state, where we're actually changing the state, and every time a state change, a render happens. We were also looking into the props, where a component receives a new set of props, or a component receives a props from its parent. So if you put what is the difference between a prop and a state, how would you put that? Murali?
Yeah, like state, every component will have state, but props means the data we can pass from the parent to child, and we can get the state automatically by from the React package. But for props, we have to install the package, like install React props types.
Okay, Murali, you're partially correct. For the props, we really do not have to install a package. For a prop validation, for validating the props,
Mm-hmm.
for the default props and what are the prop types. For this thing, we have to install the props. Okay, another package. But directly for using the props, that's the core thing of React. You don't need another package. It's all inside the React. Okay, Murali?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Kirti, how would you explain about state and the prop?
It's like props, like it starts by defining component properties in React. I mean, which are used to customize the components, and is being created, for using different different parameters. And when coming to state, it's like it depends only to a single component.
Right.
In Okay, so that is what I.
Okay, let me help you here. You're almost there. A state is a piece of data inside the component. Okay, folks. Props.
Which created in the constructor part, right?
Exactly. Yes, Kirti. That's where we create the state. Okay. A state is inside the component. A piece of data which you put onto the constructor is your state. A state is inside the component. Properties are those that are sent to the component externally. Okay.
Okay.
If you can see on my screen, you have, everybody able to see my screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, Vikram.
You see this image of the state and the props. For some reason, I have on my machine not showing up my screen, but just give me a minute. I'll try to connect so I don't keep you asking you the question and again and again. Okay, let my transformers join. Just give me. I'm trying to connect my transformers to the internet and try to get the thing what you are looking at. All right. So here we are. 836-762-5137. Okay. So on my screen, if you see, we have, we have two components, a parent component, which is a gray color in here, okay, which is a gray color component, and we have two children, okay. There's one child, which has properties, another child, which has another set of properties. So the parent component has a state. So remember I was telling you yesterday, everything you see red in color, a red box is a state. Every time you see an orange box, that's the property. So I have a parent, and what I'm doing is I have two children, okay. Inside our app, we had a search bar, we had a search bar, and we have like 4 children in here, right? The product. Okay, let me share this again. Okay, so in our application, we had an app.js, which is a parent. App is a parent component. Inside the parent, we had a search bar, which is the first child, and we had a list of children which are put into a product container. But again, these are also the children of the app.js. Okay, folks. So now we have a parent container which is gray in color, which has a state. A, B, C, D are the variables inside my state. What I'm doing in here is sending out this information to my child. Okay. So what is the set of properties that I'm sending it to my first child? Sandeep, what do you see on my screen? The first child receives few data. What is it?
ABC.
ABC, right? So those are the props. Can a child component have its own state? Murali?
Yes, Vikram.
Right. Every React component will have its own state. If you do not define a state, by default it's a null, but still it has a state which is null. Null is also a data type in JavaScript. Okay. Well, it's an object data type. So if you are doing you're passing your information down to your children, you pass this as a props. So we were looking into passing these properties into children. So okay, let me ask this question again. Shravani, if you can speak, what is the difference between state and props now?
Hello.
Yes, Shravani, what is the difference between a state and props? Oh,
State and props, like if I have a parent component and a child component, each child component will have a different state, and in each state, like we have a props, like we will what is like we'll have the data regarding each component. That's what I understood, Vikram. Like
okay.
I'm not sure whether
I'm pretty sure you are in noise environment. I think it's not audible. But Monica, can you elaborate a little more on Shravani's answer?
Hello, Vikram.
Yeah, Monica.
Yeah, state is like it's like a piece of data that it's inside the component,
Exactly.
and prop is like that sends the data to the component externally.
Yes, exactly. Is there a limit on how many variables we can have it in the state, Monica?
No, Vikram.
Exactly. Is there a limit on how much of data we can pass to the child?
No.
No, right? Awesome. Thank you so much. And we were also trying to create a container component where we were where we created a container, okay, and the container will have a children. The container has a data. The children will only view the data. Okay, so we were separating the contents. Whenever we see that there is an issue with the data, we directly go into the container and change the container, change the data in the container. Whenever you see there's something it's not visible on the UI, then you go to the view part. Okay, this is how we are separating the things. Separating the view part as a container, as a product card, separating the data inside a product container. Okay, folks? Okay, I will stop in here. Well, if you have any questions until yesterday's class, please let me know. And we will kickstart from today. Use your panel if you could not talk. Any questions from yesterday's class? Venkat, am I audible to you? Okay. So, okay. Thank you so much for the answers. Okay, thank you, Venkat. So, am I audible, right? Venkat, I would love you to speak. Can you not speak today? Can you not talk?
Hello.
Yeah, Venkat. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Okay, Venkat. So, no questions for yesterday's class, right?
No, Vikram. I don't have any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Venkat. Guys, now let's try to look at another component life cycle in React. So this time you see an yellow color. Yellow color is what, guys? I was telling you, green color is a creation. What yellow stands for? Okay, Venkat, I'm muting you. Okay, yellow starts for updating. There are three phases in every component in React undergoes three phases. One is an initialization phase, which is constructor, component build mount, render, component did mount, component lifecycle applicant. The second phase is the updating phase, and we are looking at the first component lifecycle in updating phase, which is component will receive props. Okay. Now I'll go ahead, we'll try to code a little bit, try to understand what this component lifecycle do. Okay, the first and the foremost thing I would do is, we were having our data inside our product container. Now let's try to move this data back into our app, and what we would do is we pass the data from the app to the product container. Okay, so we were having this data from in the product container yesterday. It was initially in the app.js, then we moved it to the product container. Now we are moving it back to the app.js, and you guys have to help me to pass this data into the product container. Okay. Okay, let me copy this guy in here. Okay, and let me go to the app.js. And let me create, put the data in here. I'm closing it for you can see the rest of the code, and I'm saving it. Now guys, help me to resolve this problem in here. Anybody, I will not take a name, but I would love anybody take a chance to try to resolve this error in here. And also tell me what am I supposed to do to get the things up and running again. Udesh, you want to take a chance?
Yes, Vikram. Import.
Okay, where am I supposed to import?
At the starting in the fourth line, you can make it up.
On the fourth line. Okay. What is the error about? Let's talk a little bit about error, then we can go to the coding part.
Product is not defined.
Products is not defined, and where is this error?
So we didn't declare products.
No, do you see it's a line number 12, but it also shows you the path of the error. What is the path?
Source container, product container. JS.
Okay, and where we are?
We are in app.js.
Where am I supposed to be? Where is the error occurring from?
Product container.
Okay, let me go to the product container, and what line number is it?
It shows 12.
Okay, so what's wrong with the products? It's not defined. This is what it says, right? It's not defined. Right? What am I supposed to do then?
Import.
Okay.
Product. I'm like products from
From
uh, dot slash
mm-hmm.
app
Mm-hmm. Udeshri, this is not a React component. You're not supposed to import it like this, right? This is a variable. What we're doing is, this is a list of products, but we do not have the list of products in the container. Do you see anywhere?
no
Do you see the list of products? Where do we have a list of products? We have it in app.js.
app.js.
This is where we have the products.
Mhm.
So now how do I pass the data from app.js to my product container? Can anybody take a chance while Udeshri answers the question?
I think you can import it the data from app.js. Otherwise, you can cut and paste that whatever products JSON data.
Okay, copy this in here, cut, and paste it where? In products?
Yeah.
Products? Product?
No, in
Product
container.js in that.
Container.js. So that would bring up my app again, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? I don't want my product container to have the data in here. I want my app.js to have the product. So if app.js have the products, how do I pass this information to my product container?
I think you need to extend that whatever app component into product container.js. I mean,
Folks, how do we pass the data from a parent to a child? We have a parent.
with using of props.
Okay, help me to pass this data. So I have a products in here. I try to help me to pass this data to the product container. If you have done your assignment, guys, it should be very easy for you.
Yeah.
Straightforward question. How do you pass the data from one parent to a child?
By using app.props.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, app.props. Guys, everybody answered saying that you have done your assignment. It's not doing your assignment, it's about understanding your assignment. Okay, the whole motto behind it was to make you understand the assignment. Divya, Sandeep, Murali, Monica, Kirti, anybody in the class, help me to pass this piece of information into product container.
Yeah, but before that, we need to define the prop types, data types. Like, I mean, in app.js.
Defining the prop type is an option. It's an optional thing. You would only, it's a good practice, but does not add any value to the component. You would only add.
Yeah.
To create the component, you hand off your component to somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. I'll try.
We need to do unidirectional data like this dot props.
Yes, but this dot props is accessing the properties. But how do I send the props in the first place?
Oh, yeah.
Let me give you a hint. On the product container, I am passing each information to product. How am I passing the information?
Oh, okay.
How am I passing
Either we can use a for loop or map function.
Okay, let me break it down. I want to pass a name is equal to XYZ from an app.js to my product container. Now just single property. How do I help me to pass a single property from from app.js to product container? Let me give it an inspect. And okay, I have an app in
We
here.
can give in product container, in class app.
Okay.
We
Class.
in product container we can I mean down the I mean
Here.
no in product container.
Okay.
There we can define the I mean component name again. I mean we can assign the component name again so that the simple I mean the name will be changed.
Component name.
I mean not component name. I mean the whatever the name which we want to give.
Property
I mean
name.
yes. I mean by we can change the name in this if it is already defined.
Okay. Hold on. The whole class was yesterday was passing the data, and you guys also helped me to create a product container, pass each property and each property value yesterday into product container. From one of you also said we would also pass a product image as a property to the product. All I'm asking is to pass a single piece of information from a parent, which is app.js, to a child, which is a product container. All I have to do is right next to the product container, I would say this, a name of a property, let's say property name equal to property value. This is how we pass the information to a child.
Yes.
Right? Wrong? Do not understand. Kirti?
We use this I mean for changing the value which is already given. I mean for updating the values or getting the new values.
I didn't get that. I'm
For the
sorry.
collecting all the data from that, like
What was the Udashri?
using each, for each, we are collecting all the data like that we used for the product container.
Right. That was for each product. Now what I'm doing is to pass the whole chunk of information, all the products. So let's say these are my static props, which are not changing at all. Okay. So I have to pass the static props. It's just a piece of data, which is an array. Inside an array, I have a list of objects, which are products in my case. All I have to do is pass the static products into my product container. All I have to do is give me a property name, very random, which is generic and able, name a very property name that tells you that those are the products. Okay, let's go by a property name called products is equal to what am I supposed to pass inside my products? All the static products I'm passing. Okay. Okay, now this part is good. Remember guys, this is how you pass the data from a child, from a parent to a child. Okay, using properties or props, in short props. Okay, this is like, you are injecting the data into your child. You have a lot of information, but whenever a child approaches, how would you pass the data? You inject the data, or you make them understand. That's how we do in React. But what we do is, whenever we try to use that child, at the same time we also pass the data using a single way of doing it. I'm sorry, a simple way of doing it. Left is a variable name or a property name, and the right it is a property value. Okay, folks. Did that make any sense, or do you want me to repeat? Use your panel.
Yes, Vikram, can you repeat that?
Okay, Kirti. So, Kirti, try to ask me a question, then I would try to answer the question instead of repeating the whole thing.
Yes. So they are giving products. I mean, this is like. Can you just show me the constant name which we have declared? I mean, above this.
I'm sorry, the constant name.
Yes. Yes.
We are giving a static products.
Static products. Yes.
Okay. So if I have to pass another property called name is. Okay, let me try to avoid this in here. Let me pass a name is equal to a property. Let's say Kirti. Okay. No, I'm passing this piece of information into my product container. What I would do is just try to go in here, inspect my product container, and inside my product container, did I save it? Give it a save. Okay, if that is throwing an error, let me copy this guy in here and have it in here until I get the things up and running. Okay. Now look, Kirti, we have passed a name as a name as Kirti in here. Okay. I'm sorry, I did pronounce the name wrong. Okay. So this is how I do Kirti. I pass. This is how I define a component.
Yes.
If I use a component, that component has to have some data to show, right? And
Yes.
that piece of data which the component should show, I pass them as a property. Okay. This property name and a property value. Okay.
Yes.
And look at my components now. I have a search bar. When I click on the product container, you can see what are the properties that component is getting. I can go make another component in here. Okay.
Yes, Vikram. Yes, Vikram, I got this. So the thing is, we are assigning the static products to the products which is already there in product container.
Right. So
Okay.
okay. So this you can see another property that then getting into the product container. So now help me to pass products, the static products from app.js. Now let me get back
Yes.
products back in here into here. Now try to pass this products into my products container. Monica, Murali,
Products equal to, in the braces we can give the static products. I mean,
awesome, Murali. So now we can go back to okay static products. Let me define the static products in here. Now now let me have to take it down the products in here. Now Murali, take a closer look. There is an error. It's saying the products is not defined. We know that, right? We have removed the product from the product container. But the product container does not have the products, but there's another way the product container is getting the products. How is it? There's another way that the product container is getting the products using props. Okay?
yes.
So instead of directly products, now how do I access the props of this component? Venkatesh?
To access the props,
How do I access the properties of the component? How do I access the state of the component?
Set state.
No, that is setting the
Is
state.
dot state.
No, that is setting the state. How do I read the state? You're writing to the set. Set state is writing to the state. Read it from the state.
This dot state.
Exactly.
Dot state, Vikram.
This dot state. But my products are not in the state. There's another thing the products are properties. How do I say this dot? Props, right?
oh, yeah.
I can give it a refresh and you can see my UI is running. Okay, folks. So what I've just did was to copy all my products, move everything into app.js, and from app.js, I'm sending the data from app.js to the product container as with a property name called products. I'm going right inside my to that. Okay. So right here, I'm injecting the properties to the product container. This is my app.js. Right on my left, I'm using the properties using this dot props. Okay, and the property name should remain the same. If you have a different name, it wouldn't accept. Even the capital case shouldn't work. It's a case sensitive. Okay. Now, Monica, help me pass another component, other property in here. Monica.
Where it is, Vikram?
Okay, I want to show a property name called div, and this would be let's try to pass a property into my app. I want to pass a piece of data from my app.js to the product container. How I'll go by doing it?
This dot, like props dot.
First, whenever we're trying to get the data, first you have to set the data. How do we create the data first? How do we have to have a little piece of data property? Let's create a property. Let's name anything.
Set data. Hello.
Yeah,
Space.
let's say, Monica, I'm trying to pass,
Yeah.
let's say, name into my product container. Okay. Now, how do I access from my app.js to my product container? So I'm passing into the product container, and how do I access it? I mean, how do I get the data? It's sending the data, but how do I receive the data?
I mean, we have to give like this dot.
This dot.
Props dot name.
Props dot name. Okay, and that would show up on the UI, right? There's something else that is missing. Murali, can you help me? Why is it directly showing this dot props dot name instead of variable name?
Yeah, we have to give the
Braces.
Curly braces, exactly. So that's a variable there. So anything inside a variable would have this. Okay, perfect. Okay, that's how it shows. Guys, throughout your development in React, you use only two things. You use state, you use props. And 80% you use props, 20% you use state. The UI and especially React is all about passing your data from a component to a component to a component and so on and so forth. Okay, this is a very, very, very crucial part. This is one and only the crucial part in the UI. How do you pass the data from a component to a different component? Okay. Okay. So thank you so much. I'm sorry if I have troubled you. Okay, so let's go back and try to remove this guy in here as I typed in and give it a refresh and my UI up and running. Okay, now can someone help me to create a state on app.js? How do I create a state? How do I go by creating a state? Divya, can you help me to create a state?
In constructor,
Awesome.
then open the curly braces, super,
Is it a function?
the parenthesis,
Okay.
then this dot state,
Okay. Equal to, right?
yes,
And a curly brace that would create a state, right?
yes,
Okay, now let me create a state variable called products. Okay, let's say these are my dynamic products. Okay, and inside my dynamic products, and let's say it's an empty array. Okay, now I want to pass a static products which are outside my component. Now I want to pass the data which is inside my component, which is dynamic products. How do I pass the data? How do I access variable inside my state, folks? Kirti, how do I access my state?
By giving this dot state,
This dot state and
the dynamic we need to access the static products, right?
we need to access the dynamic products.
Okay, this dynamic products. Then this dot state dot dynamic products.
Okay. So I do not have any products in my dynamic list. So if I give it a refresh, what would my UI show?
No.
No, right? It does not show any UI at all because I do not have any products. Okay. Now,
Yes.
I was telling you about another component lifecycle that is called after the render. Can anybody remember? Do anybody remember?
Component do mount.
Do mount.
Did mount.
Component will mount first.
First is will mount and then render and did mount.
What was it again? Component?
Did mount.
Okay. Who was that? Kirti, right?
Yes, Vikram.
Kirti, take a control of my system. Write that component lifecycle for me.
How can I do that?
Okay. What you can do is you can ask for a control, or I can allow, record, remove, rename, ask to start a video, make post. Okay, you can just ask me for a control. You have this little zoom bar right below, and you can click on the more and remote access. Can you see?
In options, request remote
Okay, let
control.
me give a remote control from my end for you. So this is Kirti. Kirti, you have a remote access. You should have a message on your screen saying that remote access granted. As you click on your mouse, you can able to move move the cursor on my screen. Awesome. Yep, there you go.
You want me to write the life cycle?
Yes, the component, whichever you have just told me. What is the component lifecycle that is called after the render? Perfect. Awesome. So what is it? What is it? A curly brace, flower brace?
It's a
And curly brace, yes. And now go ahead and set the state from the dynamic products to static products. If you're on a Windows machine, you have to use a command or Control C, but I'm not sure.
yes.
Okay, let me type it down for you. Okay, what are you trying to type?
The static products.
Okay, give it a type. If you cannot copy, I'll correct the spelling if there are any.
No, I mean this is too slow typing. It's getting.
Okay, that's okay. Okay. So I want to have my dynamic. Right now, my state has an empty state, which is the dynamic products. But I want to have my dynamic state to have a products from my static products. Okay. So let me take the control back, Kirti. Thank you so much.
Okay.
You still have the access, all right?
No, Vikram, I don't have.
Okay. So Kirti, while we create the state, we do double equal to this curly brace. While we set the state is not a synchronous function. You cannot forcefully say equal to. You have to do a function and inside that function, you have to set the state object and then name the variable. Right now my dynamic products was empty. No, I'm filling my dynamic products with a static products. Okay.
Okay.
Or in another sense, what I'm doing is I'm clearing my. I'm writing my dynamic products equal to an array. Okay. So which was an empty in the initial state. Okay. Then I filled it up. Let me close this line here. If you can see the screen a little better. What I'm doing in here, I'm actually adding the dynamic property products. Okay, clear until this point, guys? Now I give it a refresh. What would happen?
It displays the output.
Right. What do you think? What would happen?
It will show the data.
Okay, why would it show the data? But the render is, render happens, but the products are empty in here. But the component lifecycle is called after the render. Will the UI will still show this data?
No.
No?
No. We need to enter the dynamic product, whatever the data in dynamic product.
The dynamic products is inside my state. Okay. So render is happening, my dynamic products are showing up. My dynamic products are an empty right now. But after the render, a component lifecycle is another component lifecycle is triggered, which is on the initialization phase. And inside this component lifecycle, I am updating my dynamic products. So what will the UI show? Venkatesh, you are very, very low. Sandeep, you want to take a chance? Sandeep? Udayashri? Hello? Divya, you want to take a chance?
I think like first it doesn't display anything, but then again when it comes to component did mount, because of set state, the render function will be triggered again, and then we may see dynamic products.
Awesome, Divya. You are exactly told what is going to happen. So initially it wouldn't show anything, but immediately after component did mount, it would show up the product. In order to visualize this, what I would do is I would do the set state a little later. Okay, let me do a set state like 5 seconds after the component did mount. Okay, so I'm using a JavaScript. This is a browser API. Okay, what I mean by it is not part of React. It's not part of JavaScript. It's still part of JavaScript, but it's more of a browser thing. Okay, what I'm gonna do is set timeout, and inside my set timeout, I have to pass a function which actually is triggered, and also pass the time, how much of time it has to wait in order to trigger this function. Okay, you tell your child, put off the stove after 10 minutes, right? It doesn't put off the stove immediately, but you would put it off after 10 minutes. So we're asking him to wait for 10 minutes. This is a set timeout, and inside my set timeout, what I'm doing is instead of passing a function in here, what I would do is use ES6 arrow function, which is one and the same. And inside my function, I would copy the set state. Okay, my idea is to do a set state after. Okay, so this set state should supposed to happen after a little bit of time, so we can able to witness what's going on, not immediately after the component is rendered and component did mounted, but we want to give it some time to visualize what just Udayasri have said, right? Udayasri or Divya?
Divya.
Yeah, it is. Okay, folks, how much of time we have to wait? Give a random time.
5 seconds.
5 seconds. So a set timeout, the way it works is it will only take the time in milliseconds. So we have to do 5,000 in order for 5 seconds. Okay. Now I'm going to save it and look what's happening on the UI. Okay. I just gave it a save and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I was just counting, but well, it takes 5 seconds to load the UI. Okay. Okay, the initial set, the initial render is happening, but the initial render do not have any data inside it, so it would show a blank screen. But again, after component did mount, there is a particular method or a function that is triggering after 5 seconds, and immediately whenever it's making a set state after 5 seconds, a render cycle is again triggered. In the second render, we actually have the data. The first render, we do not have the data. The second render, we have the data. Okay? Make sense, folks?
Yes, Vikram.
Okay, use your panel if that is understood. What we are trying to do here, we are trying to do the set state 5 seconds later. Okay, Sandeep has an issue with his mic. All right, thank you so much. Now, let's go back into our product container, and this is the most widely used component lifecycle. In the updating phase, this is so widely used. I would say there are 4 component lifecycles in total in the updating phase, and this is the most used one. Okay, and this component lifecycle is called component will receive props. Okay, and unlike other methods which are, we do not pass any data into our functions. These are just the normal functions. We do not take any arguments. Remember, we were doing an example of adding 2 numbers, and the function takes 2 arguments, a plus b, and make the summation. I'm sorry, a comma b, and inside the function it would do the a plus b and return it. So the function had these arguments. Now, inside our none of the initial component life cycles have any arguments, but this particular component life cycle has an argument. Okay, and this argument, few people name it as next props. Okay, few people name it as new props. You can name it anything you like. Foo bar. Do anybody know why a lot of people use foo and bar in their examples? Okay, if you are reading any programming, getting started with the programming, you should have probably heard or read about these 2 particular words, foo and bar. Whenever you see these 2 words, it is that you can use any name as you like. Okay. Okay. So this component will be triggered with a functional argument. I always use next props because that makes more sense to me than the new props. Okay. Inside my component will receive props. Let me console log, and you guys have to tell me what's going on. Okay. This particular component lifecycle is not triggered initially. Okay, is that clear? It's not triggered initially. It will be only triggered when the component receives new set of props. Okay, let me console log this information. These are my old props. Okay, and let's say this dot props are the component's old props, and these are my new props and new props. I would give it a shot, and you guys tell me what's going on, and when try to make me understand if this component life cycle is triggered initially or after something happens. Okay. I'm giving it a refresh and going to the inspect directly. So we exactly know what is happening on the UI. Don't worry about this messages. We'll try to clear. Okay. Okay, so looks like we have misspelled our component lifecycle name. Okay, there you go. That one there. And now you exactly know what is happening on the UI. Now take a look what is happening on my console window. Let me only show you the messages. Okay, now see what's going on in here. There's a difference between two components. I'm sorry about that. Okay, there's a difference between there's only two console log messages you can see on my UI. And can you tell me what is the difference between the old props and the new props? Folks?
First one occurred when it's received the props, and then next one display the new props. After the props get the data, it's showing the props.
Okay, just give me a minute. Okay, I'm sorry, Molly. What was it again?
Component will receive props occurred when it's receive the data. It's just show the old props. After that, it's go to new props. I mean, we can access the new props.
So did it trigger on the initial run or did it trigger on the next run? Did it trigger for the initial props or did it trigger for the new set of props?
New set of props.
Okay, it hasn't triggered. Okay, we are console logging a message in here. Let me clear this thing up and you can see. Okay, so it hasn't triggered on the first render. Okay, for the second render, it has triggered. You see that? Okay.
Yes, Vikram.
Okay, so when the first render happens, this component lifecycle is not triggered. You know, it's not called. It's an uninvited guest for the initial render. But whenever a component is loaded and it feels like it's getting new set of props, then the React would call this component lifecycle. Okay, folks, makes that clear?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this would be an interview question. Can you name a component lifecycle that is triggered when a component receives new set of props? And your answer is obviously what we are discussing now. It's a component will receive props. And there will be another question. What arguments that a component will receive props will get? What are the arguments? What is an argument that the component will receive props will get? Monica?
Next props, Vikram.
You do not have to tell the name of the variable. You have to say new set of props. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So there will be another question. Did I tell you about which component lifecycle is triggered during? Okay. Is the component will receive props is triggered on the initial render?
No, Vikram.
Is it? Okay, for some reason Neha was unable to join the class. Did any of you face an issue, guys, there?
No.
Okay, so Neha says couldn't connect to Zoom for some reason, it seems. Okay, no issues. So what was the question again? What does the component will receive props? I think somebody have answered the question. Whoever it is, please.
No, Vikram. Component did mount triggers first, and then component will receive props.
No, you are into a different. It's not a series. Not like after component did mount, the component will receive props trigger. This is a new set of component life. You are into a different phase. This phase will only occur when you receive new set of props. Will that make sense, guys?
Yes, yes.
Awesome, awesome, folks. Now we have guys. It's 10 o'clock. Let's break for 5 minutes, and we'll get back. If you have any questions, please ask me on the chat window, and we'll be right back in 5 minutes. Okay, go drink, have some water, and get back. And if you have any questions, please put on your chat window. I'll try to answer them when I'm back. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, welcome back. Everybody back?
Yes, we can.
Yes, Vikram.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Now, guys, where are we? We are learning about a new component lifecycle in React, right? The component will receive props. Okay? Yes? No? Maybe?
Yes.
Okay. So, guys, whenever you are into a project tomorrow and you have to work with your backend team, right now, what in our project, what we are doing is to have the data locally, right? We are having this piece of data into our application, but this piece of data is put onto a remote server, and you have to connect to the remote server to get this information onto the UI. Is it correct? No, it's not always. It's not never. You have to hardcode the data unless and until you have your piece of information that is not changing. But nowadays, no website is not. It's not anymore a static website. You have this information somewhere else sitting, and you have your data structure. You have your HTML structure, having this data listen and showing on the UI. Now let's try to have this information on a remote server and get it on show it on the UI. Okay. Okay. For this same reason, I'm gonna create a fake server. Okay. This is a very simple, and we call it a API, Application Programming Interface. I believe most of you know what this term is. It's like you get this information, you need to get a link, and this link will have that information. And from that link, we get the data and show it on the UI. Anybody who has no clue what is an API is, use your panel. I wouldn't take their name or use a DLOC on the chat window if you feel not telling me or not using the panel. If you're not sure what an API is, I would try to explain you. Use a DLOC mode on your chat. If you are familiar, use the panel and say yes now. I'm here to help you. Please let me know. This is the most important part of the UI development. The first part is developing the UI. The second part is consuming the API. Shravani, Sandeep, Murali, Monica, and Kirti. No opinion?
I know what is API means, but how it works, I don't know.
Yeah, just a little familiar.
Same here.
But you know what an API is? You really do not have to know how it works behind the scenes. It's all the backend team that will provide you the API. They would kick off a server, and they would do there would be a series of backend stack, maybe a Java APIs, Python APIs, Scala APIs, Node.js APIs, whatever the API behind the scenes might be. End of the day, they would provide you a link, okay, and you click on the link on a browser terms. I'm just telling you in a browser terms. You click on a link, get this data, but internally you do not click the link, but you consume the data from the link. It's like your tab that is running into your home. You just push the button on your tab, or you rotate your tab, and the water gushes out. It's the same way. We would talk to an API, and that API would we open up that API, and that API would gush out the data for us. Okay. So for a very simple example, let's see how we can build a fake API. A fake API is nothing but the data from the API is not dynamic. It's a static API. Okay. So let me create a fake API. The first and the foremost thing, when you are into a development, the foremost reason I'm telling you about a fake API is not because I want to do it. I don't want to set up a server, or I don't want to run or go over setting up a server and creating an API. A fake API is the first thing you have to know when you do a UI development. Because let me tell you, when you kickstart a development process, on your day one, you have two teams. You have a backend team, you have a front end team. Okay, so the front end team will design all the whatever we have decided to design or develop it. On the UI screen, you can see the oranges, bananas, berries, apples. Okay, so this is what the UI people do. And the backend team, they have to decide, okay, where you have to put this information, how to provide this information to the UI team. Is there anybody who is changing this information, etc., will taken care by the backend team. Okay, so there are two parts in here. The data, oranges, banana, berries, apple are the data pieces that the backend team will provide you. You consume that API, you talk to them, you get the API. Whenever you talk to this API, you get this data. All you do is you have your, let me take you an example of that water. You have your containers, okay? Or, whatever containers you have. Once the tap has this water up and running, you fill your containers, right? I'm talking about a typical home where you have to save the water or, for the next day. Okay, so you have your containers ready, and then when the water is available, you fill the containers, right? But you know what? You have to make sure the container is not leaking or it's not up to mark or whatever reason it is. You do not have the water running out from the original tap. What you do is you create another fake tap, which is not possible in the real world. I'm just telling you. You could create a fake tap, simulate the water flow and see if your containers are good, or your tumblers, your buckets, or whatever your containers are good enough before the actual API or the actual water rushes up. All right. So what we're gonna do right now is to create a fake API. The simplest way of doing it is there are multiple online websites that will provide you fake APIs. My favorite is MyJSON because it's very simple. All I have to do is go to MyJSON. Okay. Okay. So there's one thing that always happens with me. Whenever I'm in a class and try to explain the MyJSON, it would never load. Okay, this happened to me close to 5 to 6 times in my class sessions, but somehow it loaded now. I'm really happy about it. Okay, so this is a very simple website that you put on the data and it will provide you an API. API is nothing but a link. www.google.com is a link. That's how it provide you a link, and you click on the link, it will get you the data back. Okay, let me put a very simple data in here. Okay, so let me create, and your data is supposed to be in a particular format. There are two different formats that are widely used. One is JSON and one is XML. Okay, so and 80% of the companies use JSON format, and it's nothing but a JavaScript thing. All you have to do is JSON has a key value page. All you have to do is to understand the JSON structure and able to read the data from the JSON structure. Okay, let me create a very simple JSON. Let me create a person JSON. Okay, let's say name of a person. Okay, let's say Jack. Okay, and the salary of the person. Let's say 30K. Okay, let's say the male of the person, gender of the person. Let's say male. Okay. Okay. Let me give it a save, and the next minute I give it a save, it would provide me a JSON URL. Okay, it needs a double quotes on the keys either. Usually we do not need them while we do the JavaScript. Okay, whenever I click a save, it's providing me a URI or an API where I can copy this API, go to a next tab and paste the API. Okay, now I can simply close my tab where I'm uploading the data or where I'm writing the data, and I close the tab and I copy this URL and click and enter. Okay, and you can see the data is back again, right? So behind the scenes, guys, what happens is, in a real world situation, you write to an API, you read from the API. The API internally will write to the database and read from the database. Okay, so what a window to the database, the only way you can write and read from the database is through the APIs. Okay, and the backend team will decide when to write, what to write, what not to write, and how much to write. They have a control over these APIs. Okay, folks? This is a very simple example of API. Any questions on the APIs? Let me clear the console log. You do not have to know how to create the APIs, guys. Backend team will provide you a very clean documentation. Most of the companies do that. If they do not, it's your responsibility to demand them, ask them. I need a API documentation. Okay? The documentation will have very clear information on the API. Right now, we are doing a get call. Get is getting the information. There is a put call. There is a patch call. There is a post call. There are multiple methods we do. Right now, let's discuss about the get call, and we can talk about this while we do the Redux. Okay. Any questions on the API? Do you want me to repeat? Divya, my screen shows that you're using another app and you're not focused on the web, on the Zoom window.
No, Vikram, I'm watching the Zoom window only.
If you are now you're watching the Zoom window.
No, I was really on this window only. I mean,
Okay.
if you want, I'll share the screen also.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, it shows me that if you're focused to window, or whichever the actual window is the Zoom window or a different window. Okay, try to answer your call. Meanwhile, let other folks try to ask any questions if they understand API. Okay, let me ask you this question again. Do you have any questions on what is an API, how to create a fake API, and how to get the data back from an API? Now we are getting the data on a browser. Now we're going to get the data onto the UI, onto the application we are doing. Any questions until this point regarding the API, creating a fake API? And I haven't tell you the main point. Why we have to create the fake API? I missed the total story back again. When on the day one, when we try to do, you guys do the development of the UI, you do not have the API ready because the backend team hasn't kick-started. You know, they might need some time to put up all the technical stack, provide you an API, create an API documentation. But by the time you guys don't wait on it, all you do is go ahead, create a fake API. You have to initially agree upon what is a JSON structure. Right now, the JSON structure has 3 keys: name, salary, and a gender, right? You have to just make this initial agreement with the backend team, sit down, have a meeting, tell them that, you know what, my UI has this information. All I need is an oranges, bananas, berries, apples, which are the name of the fruit, okay? And I need a value of that particular item. I also need a unique ID. No matter if you say it or not, they would always provide you a unique ID for every item, okay? Going forward, I'll let you know why we need a unique ID. But if you have a bunch of products, a list of products, anything that is having, that can be showed as a list, will always have a unique ID associated with it. That's how we differentiate each item with the other items, okay? So you initially decide, and you both guys, the backend and the front-end team decides, okay, you know what, this is how the JSON would look like. And then you separate, then you break. You create a fake JSON structure, you create a fake API using the JSON structure, and these guys try to build their API services, come up with everything. Try to match the same JSON structure on which is on the initial agreement. On day 20 or 30, when the guys are ready with the real APIs, what you do is you discard the fake APIs, you replace the fake API with the real API, and your application will be start and running. And if there are any issues, then you have another meeting where you call it as API integration meeting, where you integrate the API into your application. It's not always straightforward. There are a lot of issues associated with API. You make a post request, you make a get request, you're missing few headers. There is a course error where the request is originating from one source and the application is running on a different. So there are a variety of problems that are associated with one API. Okay, if you can break a riddle of one API, the rest of all the APIs fall into the same thing. It's the first time where you have to sit with the backend team, try to understand what are the headers, what is the format of the API, what is the base URL. In my case, the base URL API JSON.com. And this thing to the right keeps changing. Okay, they are called the API argument. Few people call that as API params or parameters. So on the initial meet, you decide on the JSON structure. Once they're done with an API, then you sit on back again and try to integrate the API into your application you sit together and put it into one single piece. Okay, folks. Any questions until this point? Use your panel or let's deal out more on the chat window. Is the class boring today, folks? I need someone to talk. It's really like I'm the only guy who's shouting.
It is just like complete new stuff. That is it. The class is good.
I'm sorry. Is it complete?
It is complete new stuff we are going through. That is it. Everything is good.
Awesome. Okay, let's have a quick discussion. I feel half of you guys are asleep for some reason. Nobody is responding except few folks. Divya?
Yes, Vikram.
So you understand what an API, why do we need a fake API, why do we use MyJSON, putting the data, getting the data back again?
Yes, like I never knew the concept of fake API before, so yeah, I understood now.
Okay, awesome. People, get used to this, Divya, there's new stuff always. But once you put down your hands, try to code the things up, that's where you really get a lot of questions. Things appear very simple from the top, folks. Once you get into them, there are a lot of challenges, and people who solve like challenges enjoy solving them.
Yes, like I was going through a course on Udemy, and then I had to work with the YouTube API, and there was error with that thing. So yeah, I should resolve it.
Did you resolve it, or you're trying to resolve it?
I did not still. I mailed the trainer also, but then he didn't respond back.
Okay, I can definitely take a look. If you can share me the link of your comment on the Udemy channel.
Sure, Vikram, I'll do that.
Okay. Anybody who has integrated with API before use your panel or Docker? Divya, you just said you have used your API.
I didn't do it successfully.
No, at least you know what's an API and you have touch base the API.
Yes.
Vikram, I have idea about API, but I don't know about how to create the fake API. I just know about it.
Okay, great. Good to know that. Okay. All right, folks. Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, okay, so what we just did was to come, trying to access this piece of data which is on a remote server using an API. Now we're trying to use it in a browser. Okay, I'm sharing this URL to you guys. You can try to reach out this URL and see if this is giving out the same data to everybody. It should. I'm just trying to make sure it's not going off or it's not responding. Anybody have any issue with the API I just shared?
No, Vikram, it is working.
Working fine.
Working fine, right? I was a little
Yes.
to keep you guys up. Okay, great. So in order to use this API, guys, we need some guy, right? Some person, some tool, some software that will talk to this API, get the data back, right? Some way of talking to an API and get the data back. And we call these set of tools or this set of methodologies, whatever you call, I would say libraries are called request libraries, okay, or API libraries or fetch libraries. The term might differ, but end of the day, all do the same thing. There is a piece of library that gets the data from an API to your application, okay? There's one by default by React. There are a lot others. Few I would name this as Axios. You might have probably heard this term, Axios. This is one other library, which is a promise-based library, which gets the data from an API and pass it on to the application. Okay, and there is another library called request. Okay, there's another library called request. My favorite of all the times is fetch. Okay, the definition of fetch in English is go get something. Okay, go for and then bring back. What is it going for? It's going for data and getting back as the data. Okay, so my favorite is the fetch. It's so simple, it's easy to use. If you are kickstarting a new project, you can set a standard of this. Either you can go by Axios, you can go by fetch, you can go by request. Throughout your application, try to use the same library. Okay, if you are using a different library, there should be another way of integrating the API. Okay, but 100 projects I have seen so far, I'm not telling you I have seen 100 projects, but 100% of projects I have seen so far, everybody try to stick to one particular thing. I haven't seen a single project where few lines of code was written, right? One API is calling fetch, one API is calling using Axios. No, they don't do that. Always try to stick to one library. Expertise that library, and going forth, if you have expertise it, then go for run for another library into a different project, but not in the same project. Okay, let's go fetch something. Okay, let's go fetch something. What are we gonna fetch?
Data.
What is it going to fetch here?
Data.
Awesome. So let's go fetch some data. And where are we trying to fetch this data from? Folks. Okay, so let me create a fake JSON with all my products. Okay, so let me do a fake JSON in here. So I've copied my thing. Let me create a very simple fake API that gives me my products back. Let me store it. So this is what happens. Sorry folks, for some reason the connection was lost and regained. Anybody had any issue?
Your screen is not visible.
Screen is not visible. Other than that, everything is okay, right?
Yes, everything's fine.
Okay, I cannot promise you a recorded session of this thing because the internet was lost. I don't know if Zoom would able to handle that disconnection. Okay. So let me create a very simple JSON structure. We already, we already have a JSON structure in our case where we had this products, the product name, product price. I would create a similar JSON structure. I already created it one, and I'm just trying to copy this and paste it back. And the JSON structure I have did was I have just added an ID, a product name, a product price, a product image, and a category. The category is the thing we are not showing it on the UI, but I just have it on the API. Okay, and I'm giving it a quick save, and that should return me an API. Okay, what's wrong? Okay, it just gave me an API. Let me try to check if whatever I put in is whatever I'm getting. Okay, perfect. Okay. So this is what I'm putting, this is what I'm getting. Let me try to capture this back again, and let's use a fetch library. Okay. So remember, we always do asynchronous calls. Do you guys know what is an asynchronous call is? Use your panel. Thank you, Divya. Team, do you know what is an asynchronous call is? Use the delock mode if you cannot. Okay. Udashri, are you familiar with the asynchronous call? Murali? Okay. Quick thing, guys. You know that, right? If you have 10 lines of code, every line is executed only after the previous line has been executed. You're clear until this point, right? If you have 10 lines of code, use your panel. Are you clear on this? If you have 10 lines of code, every line of code will only be executed after the previous line of code has been completely executed. Is it right? Wrong? Right, folks? Everybody agree on that, right? Okay, so let's take this example. You have 10 lines of code, and for some reason, your 5th line of code is taking a more time. Okay, the compiler wouldn't stop. What we do is we make the 5th line of code as async. Synchronous is one after another. Asynchronous is randomly. Okay, what do? What we tell the compiler with few JavaScript keywords saying that, hey, listen, you know what? Go execute line by line, but whenever you go to a 5th line of code, it might take some time. So what you do is go executing the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines of code, and there will be another guy at the 5th line of code saying for the compiler, okay, you know what? I will take care here, the 5th line of code, and I'll let you know whenever this guy has completed computation. Okay. You remember, guys, from your childhood, whenever you write an exam, at the end of the exam, when teacher tries to collect the exam papers, she would go from one person to another person. Whenever you're trying to ask for an extra minute, she wouldn't wait there until you finish, right? She would just go on to a next person, try collecting the papers. True? And whenever you're ready, she would come back to you. Whenever you're ready to give back your paper, then she would come back to you. A typical Indian exam system. You remember?
Vikram.
Right? So assume whoever is the faculty is a compiler, okay? She would go to every person. If the person is not ready to hand off the paper, what she would say is, let me know when you're done, I'll come back to you to pick the paper. Okay?
Okay, Vikram.
So this is what we call is asynchronous programming. Asynchronous programming is the compiler would not wait for a particular line of code to execute. It would give you enough time for its execution, and later come back to that line whenever it is done. And later coming back to that particular line whenever it is done, it's called a callback. Okay, the teacher, the faculty is telling you, give me a call back, whenever you're ready executing, when you're done executing, when you're done with writing your exam, give me a call back, calling you back to that particular point. Okay, folks?
Yes.
And all the asynchronous calls in React go into this particular method called component did mount. Okay, so a fetch call is also asynchronous. As why I mean asynchronous is getting the data from an API server is always asynchronous. You never know how much of time it will take. You have a loop or you have a low internet bandwidth. The remote server is busy. The remote server is overloaded. There are a variety of reasons. You cannot assume it's gonna take this amount. Okay, it might take 15 seconds, it might take 45 seconds, 30 seconds. All you do it, okay, I'm gonna make it as an asynchronous call. No matter how long you take your own time. But whenever you're done, just give me a call back. Okay, so let's do that. We call it using a keyword called fetch. Fetch is a library. I don't have to use an extra library to install it. It's part of React. Okay, I would do fetch function and the URL in here. Okay, the URL in here, and this is called a JavaScript promise. Okay, let me clear the answers. Answer: have you been learning JavaScript, right? Did you learn about promises? Answers, guys. Did you learn about promises in JavaScript? Am I on mute?
Yeah, we had a class on promises, but we didn't practice that. I didn't practice that. Sorry.
That's a collaborative answer you just said. We did practice. Okay, that was a quick correction you made. Okay, I see other folks have practiced promises. Guys, it's a promise. You know, it's a very generic English word. Promise. You know what? I promise you to come back. A promise is nothing but an asynchronous object or a function or a callback that might not immediately resolve. It might take some time to resolve. Fetch is also a promise, and we chain the promises. Okay, after one and another, we would chain them. In my case, what I do is I first initially call the fetch function, and then I say then. Okay, so I say then dot then, and this then guy would get me the data, whatever I'm getting it from the API. Okay, so let me do this then, and let's say function this, and this guy is supposed to call a function whenever it's done getting the data. It has to call a function. I would say then, and this function is called with the response. Okay, it's called a response. Okay, now I console log the response. I'm getting the data. So this is the data from the API. Okay, and inside my function, I copy this guy. So this function is called with a response. So I'm copying this response. And if for any reason the fetch call has been failed, I have to catch it. Okay, so this is our JavaScript. This is nothing anything to do with the React. And inside my catch, I create a function. And what I tell it, right? Okay, whenever you can get an error, just try to call back this function. Callback. Okay, I'm using the word callback. Callback is whenever you're done executing and trying to do something, give me a callback. Okay, so let's try to inspect and see what's going on. Okay, this is the data from my API. We already have getting the data. Okay, so we're getting the data in here. As soon as I give it a refresh, you can see the data is up and running. Okay, you see that I'm getting the data in a HTML format. What was the data where I was getting this? You know, I'm supposed to get this piece of information, right? It's supposed to give me the JSON data, but it looks like it's giving me something which is not readable. You know, I see there is a body in here. It doesn't really have anything. The headers are good. Okay, I have a status in here that says 200, and the status text says, okay, what's going on in here? Okay, folks. Now I'm getting this JSON data. Whenever trying to get the API call, I'm getting back a response as a HTML. Okay, this is all HTML. And regarding there is a very special thing about this response. The response will tell you, depending on this code, if the response was successful or unsuccessful. Okay, if the status is 200, there exists an API, the server is up and running and it's responding, then you get a 200. Okay, it's a successful API call. You made the API, you got back the API. Okay, Sorry about that. You made an API call, you get the response, and that's a 200. Let me show you a list of source codes. Status codes, where you can see. I will share this information on for you. Every status code will have a different message. Okay, it's 200. The status request was okay. 201, the request is completed and the new source has been created. Okay, and you might have probably know this error. 404. This is a very, very, very common error. No, does anybody have seen a page saying 404? Use your panel. You might have seen somewhere for any reason. Probably a lot of websites. Whenever you're trying to fetch a URL which does not exist, you see this 404 not found. The server cannot find a requested page. So your status will tell what was your request and what was the response. And if the response is not the server is not up and running, you'll get this source code of the status code. I keep saying source code. This is status code. Okay, what I'm getting in a HTML response, but what I need is a JSON, right? So what I pass in this is, once I get it, then you remember, guys. You guys have been to Chipotle, guys? Anybody have been to Chipotle?
Yes.
Right, you guys have been to Chipotle. Initially, a person would get a bowl. He would ask you to either white rice or a brown rice. He would pass on you. He would put that onto a bowl, and he passes that to the next guy. That is done. Okay. Once you are done, then pass to the next guy. Once you are done, then pass to the next guy. That is what we do here. So in order to pass it to the next guy, in the real world, you actually pass the physical object. But in a JavaScript, in order to pass it, we use a keyword called return. Okay, so return the response, but not just response. We need the JSON part of the response. Okay, and we pass it to the next guy. The next guy who puts all this what those things are. What does the next guy put? All those curries, all the meat, if you want. So this guy will take the response, the JSON response. This is the JSON response. Okay, then let me console log this JSON response. This is the JSON response. I'm taking too long because there are a lot of things that I have to cover. But bear with me, I would wind up in another 5 minutes and be open for any questions. Okay, I will just take a look, give it a refresh, and response. Okay, now you can see that it's actually getting me not only the HTML response, it's also getting me the JSON response. Isn't it cool? Okay, so what is the next thing I have to do in order to show it on my UI? Folks?
Parse.
Okay, parse and do what? How do I show something on the UI? How do I update my UI? Okay, I got the data. How do I update my UI? Now this will be your assignment for tonight, where I made it until the point where getting the data, and it's your thing, because I already told you how did we get the dynamic part doing making delayed. I was simulating a fetch call by using a timer in there, but I removed the timer. No, we are using a fetch call, which is a kind of a same timer thing, but not that it definitely takes 5000 milliseconds. It would take whatever time it requires to take. Then what we did after the 5000 milliseconds. Try to understand that part and try to apply the same thing in here, and that should show the things onto the UI. Okay, folks, and This is not just one assignment I'm giving you. You're not going to work on the same exact project. In your case, what you're going to do is create your own JSON structure. Okay, create your own JSON structure, put it on a fake API. Somebody was doing a reminders thing. Who was that?
Divya Vikram.
Yeah, Divya, I really liked it. You have to have your reminders as a JSON structure on the MyJSON, consume the API, then show it on the UI. Okay, I'll show you how to show the things on the UI tomorrow. But in your case, you have to have your reminders on a JSON, read the JSON using the fetch call and show it on the UI. And Monica, you're working on the wedding cards, right? Monica,
Yes, Vikram.
you are working on the wedding thing, right?
Oh, Valentine's cards.
Oh, Valentine's cards. You will have your all the Valentine card information on the JSON structure. Copy the JSON structure, put onto your MyJSON, get the URL on the component did mount, use a fetch call to get the data and update the data. Show me the point where you can get the data and we'll try to update the data. If you can also try to get it to the UI, that would be really good. Okay, folks? Venkat, in your case, you are working with the cars, right? The car dealers, or it's something to do with the cars.
Yeah.
Create a different data for different cars. Try to use the data structure and the same thing, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay. So, any questions? I'll be here for the next 10 minutes. If you have any questions, please do ask. Any questions regarding until this point? We have completed a week into the course, guys. I assume that you had made a very good progress, but I would only tell you you did made a progress confidently only by looking at your assignments. Whatever I did, try to do it on your machines, try to do even better things on your machine. I would be really happy to look at them and try to help you. Okay, there's also a React New 16 course released. Please take a look. To be honest, whatever I'm teaching right now is React 15. Okay, so there is a React 16 version. There are new things, but the things that are on the React 15 are things that are on the React 16 as well. There are few more things, but if you have found few more things that are not part of this course, assume that they are part of React 16. Okay. Okay, I'll break in here. That's enough of talking for me today. If you have any questions, please do ask.
Vikram, there's a quick question.
Yes.
So like when you're doing the component did mount, like the promise calling, so like response, JSON response, are these the standard, I mean the reserved words that we need to use every time to get the JSON response?
You know what? I can use anything. I can use food. I can use food here. Okay, it does not.
So,
but what it all matters is does that term really say what it carries?
okay, is it the same case with the JSON response also? Or
yeah, I'm really using the word called response. People have I have seen few developers use RES and RES JSON. Okay. It's up to you. If that word makes more sense to a next who's looking at your code, go ahead and use it. Naming the terms, it's up to you. But try to name them in a way that other developers are able to understand the code. Okay?
Okay.
You know what, I can say Pokemon. But does it add any value to the code what I'm doing here? No, right?
No.
That's the case there.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
If you do not have any questions, guys, you are free to drop.
Hello.
Yeah,
Vikram, class 3 is not working. Can you look at it once again?
I'm sorry, the class?
Class 3 videos.
The class 3, I have updated. Murli, don't you think it's working? Okay, let me take it to Blue Packet. After the class, I'll take
Yeah,
it.
sure.
I'll take it.
Sure. Thank you.